This is the 18 Strong Podcast with Jeff Pellizzaro.
Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, where you get direct access to the world's greatest experts on training harder, practicing smarter, and playing better golf. Now, here's your host, Jeff Pellizzaro.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast. This is your host, Jeff Pellizzaro, and I want to thank you for joining me for the 16th episode of the 18 Strong Podcast. And today I have a guest, a buddy of mine that I got to meet a few months back, got to hang out for quite a bit in Carlsbad, California, Mitch Sadowsky. And Mitch is working with some of the best in the world. He works with guys like Ian Poulter, Graham McDowell. He's working with Lisa Longball of Vlooswijk up in Canada, who is a long drive champion. And Mitch is just doing some pretty cool things, some great stuff, traveling all over the world. He's everywhere. Every time I talk to him or catch up with him on Facebook or something, he is in a different place, different town, traveling all over the place. So he has a whole lot of great things going on. And so we're going to talk about a lot of different things. Mitch, like I said, has worked with tour players. He himself played a lot of golf, but really played a lot of volleyball, played professional volleyball, college volleyball, and also did some coaching at the college level. And so Mitch knows a lot about explosiveness and power that's needed for all kinds of sports, not just golf, coming a little bit more from the volleyball background and then moving his way into the golf world and obviously really doing very, very well. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about some different things to capitalize on strength and power and speed in your golf swing, and the importance of Olympic lifts and who should be doing them and how they should be doing them, and how all this stuff ties into your golf game. So we've got a great episode here with Mitch Sadowsky. Before we get into that, I do want to read one of the reviews that we got from iTunes. I always love seeing the reviews on iTunes. I thank you guys all for sending in your reviews and putting in the ratings and everything. So I just wanted to read one. I like to do this almost every week when I get a chance. This one is by GolfDad62, and he says, "Hey Jeff, solid job, and you are now my new favorite podcast. I'm learning new gems every cast. I've played golf since I was a teenager on the high school team. Now I have a 13-year-old daughter interested. Is there a drill or exercise that would help a young female golfer? Keep up the great work." First of all, Golf Dad 62, thank you very much for putting in your review and giving me some feedback. As far as for your daughter's sake, the biggest thing that I would suggest is working on lower body strength and really just some strength in general. I don't like to just give out random exercises. Of course, we'll talk about some stuff here with Mitch in the podcast about different things that people are doing with some of the youngsters and what they should be doing and how you can get them involved in some of the better exercises. But the biggest thing is I would go and get her assessed somewhere, make sure that she is structurally balanced, and then start working on some strength-related stuff and kind of get her going as far as working on just the basics. At 13 years old, coordination is always a challenge. Kids that age are always growing, they're changing, and so really to just get her strong and comfortable and balanced over the ball is going to be my best suggestion. Now, I do have a great book that I'm actually in the process of reading and have been very impressed with. It's by Henry Brunton, and it's called High Performance Golf: The Serious Golfer's Guide to Effective Training. And so far it's been a great book, really laying out strategies and plans as far as if you're a competitive golfer or your kid is a competitive golfer, some of the things that you really should look for, when you're looking to possibly get to the college level or the professional level, and how do you start to structure that from an early age. So really great stuff by Henry Brunton in High Performance Golf. So with that being said, I'm going to let you guys get to Mitch's episode here and hope you enjoy it. And as always, I'll catch you on the other side. Hey, Mitch, welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast.
Thanks, Jeff. It's great to be on. Glad we could finally get together and sit down for a few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. To those of you out there, we've got Mitch Sadowsky on the line here, and Mitch and I got to know each other really well out in California at the World Golf Fitness Summit. Actually, literally spent 4 days together, shared a room and everything, and ate a bunch of fish tacos together and all kinds of stuff. So had a great time out there.
It's really hard to have a bad time when you're in San Diego, and The fun compounds itself when we can get together with like minds and have some really good food together and sit around and talk shop.
Yeah, great food, great conversation, couple cocktails, really, really a great time. A lot of great knowledge shared that weekend. So Mitch is the director of golf fitness at Lake Nona Country Club, which I know you guys have heard of. He's also the lead camp coach at Gold Medal Squared Volleyball and works with a few fairly big name golfers. Mitch, I'm going to let you give a little background on who you are, who you work with, and what brought you into the world of golf fitness.
Yeah, I guess from the beginning, I golfed as a kid. Nothing really formally. I never really took lessons. It was more pick up a club and go try to hit it straight and hit it as far as I could. And I was a pretty active kid. I took did a lot of sports. I did baseball. I did football. I did basketball. That was pretty much it. And I almost broke my leg in 8th grade. So my mom said no more football. I got into volleyball, and that kind of took over my life. I played collegiately at Ball State University, and from there I went on. I played 2 seasons professionally, and then I played a number of years on some of the local beach volleyball tours. But I was never really that far away from golf. When I was in grad school, my mom actually bought me a set of clubs for my undergrad graduation, and once I finished my thesis, I had like 5 months to kill. I just golfed every single day and really kind of developed that and really loved playing and continued to play for a long time. Once I was coaching college volleyball and was doing our strength training programs with our S&C coaches. And so I started training in that manner. Plus, I was doing all my own off-season workouts while I was playing professionally. And so once I got done coaching in college, I got into training privately with clients. And I had somebody approach me that used to work with Ian Poulter. And so I started working with Ian and having some familiarity with golf and having more familiarity with strength training and rotational sports, since volleyball and golf are both rotational. Started working with him. Lake Nona brought me on and brought me in, and I've been there for the last 3 years. And worked with Ian for 2. Started working with Graham McDowell last winter, and a number of the other up-and-coming full-time PGA hopefuls. I've been working with them as well as a number of juniors. So I've got my hands in a lot of different areas of golf.
Awesome. And I have to ask you, Graham McDowell has for years been one of my favorite golfers. Just seems like one of the coolest guys out there. And I've always said that, if there were a couple guys on tour that I had a chance to play golf with, Graham seems like he would be one of those guys that you could just go hang out, have a great round, maybe have a pint of beer afterwards. Is that the experience that you've had with him?
100%. Graham's he's a really good guy. I mean, what you see is what you get. He's very intuitive when it comes to golf. In fact, I found with a lot of the guys, when you're out, if you're just taking a couple of swings with them, they'll always jump in and give you a tip or two. I know Graham's kind of had his surprise coach video series, but you can go out and play and go have a pint and just have the exact same conversations. He doesn't change too much from what you would see in the public eye versus privately.
So you're working with these guys. I know you've been traveling a lot. It seems like you go off on some different trips and meet with different athletes here and there. I know you're up in Calgary right now, I believe. And
yeah.
So what does it look like when you're working with somebody like a GMAC, or you're working up in Calgary with Lisa, who I'll let you introduce? What does your sessions look like? What does your week look like? Or how does that all play out?
It's Lisa Vloeswick. Actually, she's probably better known as Lisa Longball Vloeswick. She's a 7-time Canadian long drive champion. She's finished fairly high at the World Championships. She just finished 3rd this season. So we got up here. I talked to her about doing some off-season work with her. And Monday we did her postseason testing. So we took her through a TPI and an FMS, functional movement screen, and took her through those screens. We did some power testing, and that kind of sets where I want to look at for our off-season program. So it's a little bit different for Lisa, and I'll kind of explain how it's different for her versus someone like GMAC or Ian when we're working together, and some of the other guys. So with Lisa, our big thing is trying to figure out where her power leaks are. Because she is a long drive champion, small things become very big. So we're trying to figure out where her power leaks are and where we need to address some of the things that we want to identify as weak points for her off season. So once we got all that done, we wrote a program. It's going to be very power and speed based. We're going to focus this week on removing restrictions, and then just getting her form taught because she doesn't have, well, she's got a background in some of the Olympic lifts, but we want to make sure that technically she's really, really sound. Doing a distance program has its own challenges because I'm not there with her every day. But when we set a foundation for her, it's something that she can do on her own, and we'll Skype session some of her workouts as well. Okay. So with Graham and Ian, the professional side is really, really different because you could see them 3 months total out of the year. So you're constantly working on assessments. You've got a very small window for their quote unquote off season, which can be anywhere from 6 to 8 at the very longest, maybe 9 weeks. So usually they don't hit balls for a few weeks, which actually helps for me. We can develop some good strength. I really like to give them about a week off, and then we'll hit a pretty good strength phase for about 2 to 3 weeks. Understanding that, are we really going to increase, am I looking to increase their 1RM? Probably not. But are we looking to get a really good solid base within that time? Yeah, absolutely. And then we're working on a lot of technical things, a lot of form work, which will springboard us into the season. So we're not having a yo-yo effect of training where it's train, take time off, have to start over, take time off, start over. So we're trying to avoid that as much as possible.
When you have those guys coming back, because like you said, the off season these days is so short and so sporadic, really, depending on when and where they're playing. Do you find that you have to go through a lot of the corrective stuff and removing restrictions when they get back? I mean, are they broken down and battered when they come back to see you?
Not really. We're also very fortunate, or they're fortunate. The whole performance team is fortunate, so that when Ian would go out on the road, as soon as he would leave, I'd be on the phone with his tour physio and say, hey, we worked on X, Y, and Z. We identified 1, 2, and 3 as some points that, from a soft tissue standpoint, we need to address. These are the things we need them working on, and they go and do it. With GMAC, it was very much the same thing with his tour physio. We had some really good conversations going into the off season. So we very much approach it as a performance team, as opposed to, I'm just taking care of the things in the gym, and then, Graham's out on tour and the physio looks after him from a soft tissue standpoint. We all understand what our jobs are, so that there's probably more communication between the physio and I than the athlete and I. And there's a considerable amount of communication that goes on.
Sure. And then when they're doing, I assume you put together some workouts for them on the road. And then does the physio oversee that, or are they pretty independent where they, go to the tour trailer or do whatever and get their stuff done on their own?
Ideally, they have some supervision. But that's one thing that's very difficult on the PGA Tour, especially when you're one of the top guys and fairly well known, like Ian and Graham and a lot of the other guys. Is they're being pulled in a lot of directions from before the round to after the round. So getting in the gym sessions, we try to keep it as short as possible. And we also try to make it as impactful as possible, so that, they just came off for 4.5 rounds. We've gauged about how many swings they take per day so that the workout is meant to maintain what we've worked on in the off season, but not grind them into the ground to where they're really tired the next day. They need recovery. So our workouts are based more towards recovery than, a big heavy lift.
Right. And now, because their off season is so short, you mentioned setting up a good strength base. Do you get to get into much of the power or speed stuff with these guys, or are they on the road so much and it's such a short window of time that you can't even really get into that stuff?
No, we get into it. One of the things that I've been looking at up here is how do we take sprint type training and mesh that into golf training. And there's a lot of posture, there's a lot of core involvement in being a good, strong, efficient sprinter. And then you start getting into the amount of force that you're producing through the ground through a good sprint cycle. So if we can do that in the off season, we can get that stuff moving. If they take a little bit of time off, it's not going to kill them. You can sprint 5, 6, 7 times and you'll know it based on your heart rate, your breathing, etc. So when they come back off the road, we'll get right back into that. We'll work on their posture. We'll work a little bit of gait work. We'll do a lot of high knee work and get into some sprints so that their body maintains the idea of how to move fast and how to explode and how to create force.
Yeah, you mentioned that you got to go to some pretty cool facilities and meet with some people up there while you're in Calgary. Give us a little idea of what they're doing up there that is so interesting. You and I were talking a little bit before the call, and you said these guys are doing some things that are a little bit different or a little eye-opening and really getting results.
Yeah, to give them a good shout-out because they've been really, really helpful and gracious to having an outside trainer come into their facility. I'm at the Athlete Factory, which is, if anyone from Calgary is listening to this or anyone's in Calgary, it's just off of Blackfoot Trail and Southland. And Blackfoot Trail and Heritage. Anyway, so it's definitely a performance facility, but they've got kids training from 10 years old all the way up to adults in their 60s. And it's a really good training facility. They've got a really good methodology that they use of doing Olympic lifts and different squat variations. A lot of the rowing, keeping the anterior chain strong, as well as strengthening up the posterior chain. So they're fixing the imbalances. They do a lot of sprint work. They do a lot of acceleration work. And again, it's going from kids 10 years old to adults that are in their 60s. And then we also have kids that are in here. They were in here tonight when I was over there working out, and they've got some kids golfing. They've got soccer players. They've got hockey players, which is mandatory if you're in Canada. Volleyball. I mean, they've got kids from all different sport backgrounds doing these workouts. And it's really good to see them starting the kids off with the Olympic lifts, the highly technical lifts early, because that's only going to make them more proficient as they get older and further into their sports.
Yeah, let's talk about the Olympic lifts and kettlebells and things like that, because I know that as fitness becomes more mainstream in the world of golf, and people are starting to see it. It's on the Golf Channel. We've got TPI, and we're starting to see, golfers. We just saw a picture floating around on Twitter and Facebook just in the past couple of days of Rory squatting, deadlifting some pretty heavy weight. And, so is this stuff that the average golfer, the guy that plays at the country club or is just looking to play some really solid rounds and become a really good golfer, could be a high-level amateur or whatever, is this stuff that they should be implementing into their program, or what are the qualifications that they need to do that?
Well, first of all, the answer is yes, 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 and yes. They absolutely need to. I'm a huge proponent of it. Now, does that mean that we're going to ask them to try to snatch 100 kilos overhead? No, absolutely not. Are we going to ask them to clean and jerk like Kendrick Harris? who's the U.S. champion? No, absolutely not. But there are a lot of variations off the Olympic lifts that golfers can use, and especially, to the average golfer who's probably chained to a desk or driving in their car on sales calls or whatever for the majority of the day, these are really, really important lifts to do from a strengthening standpoint, from a gain speed standpoint, and even just from an injury prevention standpoint. There are lots of modifications that you can do. Would I say go off and do them on your own? I think it depends. If you've got a very strong training background and you've been in the gym before, I think that's something that you can go and learn through YouTube. If not, I would say go find a highly qualified trainer, someone that's got their USA weightlifting certification or they're TPI certified at probably the level 2 or even level 3 if you can find them, because that's when they start to cover a lot of the Olympic lifts. Find someone who's qualified, have them take you through the technical side of it and teaching the positions, teaching the acceleration patterns and the movement patterns. And then you can do them so that, maybe you're working with them once a week, but you're doing these workouts 2 to 3 times a week. As they say in the USA weightlifting certification, once you do it correct once, you've got the 1,000 rep problem. You got to do it right 1,000 times before it's really ingrained. That said, you can still do some modifications where they're not as highly technical, but they're still as impactful.
And what are some of the basic lifts that you would say, let's start looking at? So I'd say I'm a guy. I don't know much about training. I just have started my workouts, just kind of gotten in the gym. Haven't been assessed, haven't been evaluated. What are some of the lifts that I should start to learn about at least? Not necessarily jump right in and do, but what are some of the bigger ones?
Well, if you haven't been assessed, then I would not suggest doing any of these. It's like going on a cross-country journey and not bringing a map or a GPS. You're going to have no idea where to go, and you're going to get lost. The first thing to do is figure out what your plan is. And as Dan John, who's a noted strength coach, Dan John says, make your plan and work your plan. So trying to figure out what you need to do from a functional and mobility standpoint is really, really important. Once you've gotten that, you've cleared out your restrictions and you're ready to go, I would say probably the first thing to do is some type of a deadlift and some type of a front squat. For beginners, novices, I would say a really good front squat variation would be a goblet squat, which is going to use a kettlebell or a dumbbell. So the way you would see the dumbbell on a rack, if it's in a horizontal position, you're going to hold it vertically so that the two weighted ends, one's pointed to the floor, one's pointed to the ceiling. It's probably one of the most foolproof squats that you can do because you're holding it up shoulder height. The weight is going to help get you to the floor. At the same time, it's teaching you how to push through your feet to get back into your standing position.
All right. And so first of all, I want to say the fact that you told everybody you got to have a plan first fits in perfectly with everything they've heard on every other podcast episode here. So I did not convince Mitch to say have a plan, get assessed. But I think you got to figure if you're a serious golfer, you really want to get better, you want to make a difference in your fitness routine. Take the time, take the effort, and take the money and put it towards getting assessed. It doesn't mean you have to go work with a trainer forever or for 3 times a week or whatever. But like Mitch said, go ahead and get assessed. Or if you're proficient enough and you have a solid training background, you have some knowledge there, maybe you can figure some of this stuff out. But if not, get assessed, get your plan put together, and you're going to be so much more effective. You're going to have some goals that you can work on. You're going to know what restrictions you have, what limitations you have, and then you can move towards doing this stuff and learning it efficiently and learning it properly. And I love the fact that you said those guys are working with the kids up there with all this stuff and teaching them the technical stuff right away, because that's when you really start to build the habits.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a really small window in childhood development where you can really focus on developing fast twitch fibers and the motor patterns that are going to be associated with moving as fast as possible. So teaching those patterns are great. They're not loading these kids up with a ton of weight that they can't handle. I mean, they're using broomsticks, they're using PVC pipe. There's a lot of lightweight implements that they're going to work on form so that when it is time to load them up, they can handle it. And I think that's what's really important to sort of translate over into, once you've been assessed, is that handle weight that you can handle. And if you can't handle weight, just work on the technical side. I think a really good example of someone who's got poor shoulder mobility, which a lot of people have. Again, if you're at a desk for the majority of the day, you're probably very short and tight in your upper chest, which is going to prevent some shoulder function. And if you try to press weights overhead, eventually you're going to start using muscles that just don't want to be used and shouldn't be used. And you're going to look at it actually hurting your performance or injury. And as Greg Cooks likes to say, you can spend a little bit of money getting assessed, or you can spend a lot of money later on getting fixed. It's kind of up to you. So identifying, where it is that you want to go is important. And that kind of goes back to what you and I talked a little bit about earlier is, what's the off season like? We need to set a plan for the off season. And it's not just, I want to get stronger. I want to hit the ball farther. Or I want to hit it straighter. Well, sorry for the language, but no shit. Everybody does. So what we want to think about is why? Why do we want to hit the ball farther? Why do we want to hit it straighter? All of those things. We understand how that translates into the golf game and potentially lower scores, but really what I'm going for is feel. Can you feel your swing better? Can you feel the interaction better? Are you better coordinated through your swing? And making sure that through the strength program, that your strength program is actually teaching muscle coordination, which is what sprints will help do as well. So if you can coordinate the firing patterns of the muscles throughout the swing, it's going to be the same thing when you're firing those muscles in a coordinated pattern throughout your lifts. That's what's going to help your golf game, because if it's about shaving strokes, it's not about necessarily hitting it farther and straighter. It's about consistent repetition of motion. And that's where the off season really needs to be geared towards.
You kind of just took my next question out of my mouth, because I get a lot of people that ask me, okay, so you're telling me I got to do these exercises. How is this going to translate into my golf game? This doesn't look like a golf swing. This isn't doing the same thing that a golf swing is doing. But I would love to reiterate what you just said, that when you start working these muscles and you start, putting some weight on it, or start working at a little bit faster speed, or you just start to develop a more solid base. I get so many people that come in, we haven't done anything that looks golfy whatsoever, but they come in, they say, I just feel a lot stronger over the ball. I'm able to rotate through better. I'm able to hit it, maybe hit a little further. But it just seems like they feel more comfortable. And I think that speaks exactly to what you're talking about, that feel that they have.
Absolutely. And, from a strength and conditioning side and from a kinesiology side, which I'm not going to get too in depth with, like you said, feeling stronger over the ball. Well, generally what that means is you've got better anterior stability. Your pelvis, your lumbar, and your lower T-spine are going to be interacting a little bit better, so that as you push through the ground to create your ground reaction force, everything's going to be more stable, so you can actually transfer that force into rotational speed. And that's what's really important. If those muscles aren't coordinated together, you're going to have some power leaks. So, there are lots of different factors at play, and really focusing on how those help, as Charlie Weingroff would say, it's golf-ish. So can we train golf-ish? And, does that mean that squatting and deadlifting the way that Rory does? Are there people that want to do it? No, they don't. There are a lot of golfers that don't want to do it. But if they're really focused on those incremental successes, then yeah, it probably needs to be done.
Yeah, I mean, just to develop the speed, the power, and just, I like to say tap into that natural athleticism that a lot of people have. Sometimes you get over the golf ball and it's almost like you lose every ounce of athleticism that you have because people get so technical and they start thinking about so much. But sometimes you just start training train the body the way that it wants to move, and things just kind of start working.
Well, you kind of touched on a really interesting point is, the golf swing is very technical, but you're trying to move it in a very, very precise sequenced pattern. Well, if your body and your muscles can't fire in that synchronized, coordinated pattern, you're going to hit 2 5-irons completely different. And that's when the average golfer stands over the ball and either slices it or hooks it into God knows where, and they get all upset. They go to the next tee, and they throttle one down the middle of the fairway, and the very first comment is, why can't I do that every time? Because your muscles don't know how to. The muscle firing patterns aren't coordinated enough to actually repeat that action. It's not happening. But have you really done what needs to be done off the course to get those firing patterns coordinated? Because a straight leg deadlift is very similar to a golf swing in terms of the hamstring and glute activation and everything that's needed to stabilize everything to generate power and to generate force. And so understanding that gym relationship, the golf-ish workouts to how that applies to the course is important.
Totally agree. All right, let's get into what some of the audience definitely wants to hear about, a little bit more about, the guys that you work with. And really, I'm fascinated with just how good these guys are, how athletic these guys are. And Mitch, I know you've been one of the biggest proponents of 18 Strong. You've been, sharing stuff on social media, wearing the shirt around town, flashing pictures on Facebook and Twitter. And first, I just want to get a definition from you of what does 18 Strong mean to you, and then maybe a couple examples of what you've seen with some of these high-level players that exhibits that.
18 Strong to me is being able to go through your warm-up, go through your practice, hit off the tees, get onto the course, play your game, both physically and mentally strong, and then when you're off, still have enough energy and not feel like you've got to collapse into a heap. Whether it's, Florida in the middle of July or it's Vancouver in May and you're getting soaked with rain. So being able to finish that with the same amount of energy, the same physical feeling that you could go again if you needed to or if you wanted to. And so that's kind of my idea of 18 Strong.
And can you think of any specific examples? And it could be on the course, it could be in the gym, it could be just any interaction that you've had personally. And it doesn't have to be with GMAC or Ian or Lisa, but with any of your golfers. Maybe an example, because we love stories here on the 18 Strong podcast of somebody that exhibited that.
Right now, we're just coming off of a lot of the non-tour guys that I'm working with. They're coming off the course in some of their practice rounds, and we're working out in the gym, and they're giving me a really good workout after a solid 2-hour practice session, especially when they're grinding, and that takes time to develop. One of the things that I try to do is ask them, when do you practice? And when do you want to work out? Because some of them don't want to say, they say, I don't want to go out and practice when I'm tired or sore because the skill level is going to drop down. And skill development when you're tired is very difficult. There are others that want to work out before they hit because they are a little bit tight. And there's nothing wrong with being a little bit tight when you're hitting. In fact, a little bit of stiffness isn't bad because it's going to help you control your range of motion more. You're actually going to be able to develop a little bit more force when that happens. There are others that really like to work out after they've practiced. That's kind of their idea of 18 strong, that, when I get off the course or practice, I want to feel like I'm ready to lift. So each individual's different. Probably the closest thing is one of the guys I'm working with named Matt Stanchina, who's a really good golfer. He's got a lot of ability. And his comments to me right now are, he just feels really good about his game. He's hitting the ball long. He's hitting it straight. The consistency of his swing is there. And the biggest thing that he tells me is he's just got really good feel around the course. So that for me tells me that we're moving in the right direction with him.
Absolutely. That's what I love to hear. Just, it's all coming together. You're feeling solid on the course. You're finishing your 18 holes. You're ready to go. Still enough energy to get in the gym and get things done. But just that whole mentality that I'm in a good place with my game. That to me is exactly what 18 strong means. So Mitch, I know you've always got a ton of stuff going on. You're traveling across the country, going here and there. What's got you excited about what's going on in your different endeavors these days?
Well, everything. We're in the off season right now, so I'm fairly busy working on a couple of projects with one of the S&C coaches that's up here in Calgary, and we're going to be working on a few things moving forward that I can't really talk about just yet, just because of how we're developing it, but we're really excited to try to blend some ideas of strength training from other areas and how they apply to golf from a power, stability, and transfer arena. What similarities in training a rugby player could you take and work with a golfer? And, a lot of people will say that training hockey players are easy to train as golfers because they've got great lower body strength. They've got phenomenal lower body stability. Their hand-eye coordination is really good. So, we're working on some projects that, are we missing anything in golf fitness? And it's been a very, very obviously heavily covered topic from a lot of really brilliant people. And so I try to get out of the golf realm a little bit, just to try to see, are we missing something? Is there something that we can take from other areas of training into golf that we're just missing a couple of pieces here and there? So that's kind of where my mindset is right now in terms of developing our athletes. And I refuse to hear anybody say that golfers aren't athletes. They're absolutely athletes. They may not look like it, but you can't tell me that the Stadler family aren't athletes. Despite their girth, there's still athleticism there. They can still hit the ball. They can still repeat highly technical motor patterns. So, how we develop our athletes, I think, is really important. And if there's something that we've missed, I want to make sure that we find it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And obviously, that, with the stuff that you're doing, 18strong.com, 18 Strong Podcast, we'd love to shed any light on whatever you guys have going. So we'll be happy to spread the word once you are able to reveal your top secret missions. And, but I think it's so important. We look into different sports that have been doing this for a long period of time. Golf fitness is pretty new in the golf world. In respect to other sports, basketball, football, rugby, that kind of stuff. So if we're not looking to learn from those training the best in those other sports, then we probably are missing something. So I applaud you for doing that. Well,
thanks. Yeah. And it's coming from a volleyball background as well. I tend to look at things a little bit different. And so, one of the things I've talked to some other volleyball strength coaches and coaches about is, why such a high preponderance of knee injuries and shoulder injuries? And so that leads me back into some other conversations with some other S&C guys of, what can we do to cut down on back injuries in golf? What can we do to help take care of golfer's elbow? And, from a TPI perspective and removing restrictions and assessments, those are all really important parts of the journey. But, if they're still there, then what are we missing? And so, what I want to make sure is, are we covering all of our bases in terms of strength and conditioning? And then where's it going to be impactful? And if we can make it impactful to the guy that, is 4 handicap and wants to drop it down, or are we doing it to the 12-year-old who really, really likes golf? He's not playing a lot of other sports, but really likes golf, and he's getting back problems. And I see it a lot. I mean, there are a lot of young kids out there that are getting injured, and they're completely avoidable. So we want to make sure that we're covering our bases there, because we're in a really, really exciting time for golf. Players are starting younger. The fitness industry is starting to catch up. The teaching side of it. And now we're starting to get the idea of performance teams together, fitness working with the golf pro, fitness working with the rehab professional, the fitness and rehab professional working with the golf professional. It's all really, really, it's fun, actually. So making sure that, like I said, all those bases are covered, and we're training people the right way so that golf can be fun and injury-free, which I think is the most important part.
Yeah, it's such a neat thing to see. I mean, everybody that we met out in California, everybody that I've come into contact with in this industry, and I think the fitness industry is like this in general, but, everybody seems so willing or wanting to learn more. And, we've all got our different philosophies on different things, but I think we see that the people that are the best in the game are the ones that are continuing to learn more. I mean, I look at a guy like Al Vermeil. For the audience, if you don't know who Al Vermeil is, he's one of the most decorated strength coaches of all time. Worked with the Bulls when Michael Jordan was there, the 49ers when Joe Montana was there, the White Sox. And here's a guy who's 60-something years old, and that guy is wanting to learn more than anybody. And to be around people like that and to see that that's where the fitness world is for golf right now, it's a pretty cool and exciting period of time. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think that goes back to the fitness side. And I think a lot of times from the fitness perspective, we tend to get a little territorial, where, our plan is our plan. And it's, as you alluded to earlier, it's some top secret thing, when really the best strength coaches are the ones who are collaborating with other people. What are you doing that you found is successful? And, what is Al Vermeil doing that's successful, and what is Robert Yang doing that's successful, and what's Ben Shear doing, and what's Joey D doing? I think it's important that we all talk about what we're doing, because we're all in it for the same reason, and it's not a competitive type thing. It's we need to share that knowledge. I think it's really important.
All right, Mitch, before we let you go, any last parting pieces of advice for the golfers in the audience out there?
Yeah, a couple of things. One, make sure you have an off season. Don't be afraid to take 2, 3, 4 weeks off and forget about your golf clubs. Take a little bit of time off, even if it's just a mental break. Golf is such a mental sport that you can really beat yourself up over it, and it's good to have that break. And while you're on that, while you have your off season, make sure you get assessed, make a plan, work your plan, and follow that. And one thing that we really focus on, again, with some of the guys I'm working with now, is if you're going to golf, that's fine, but we have to understand that our off season is an off season for a reason, and we have things that we need to accomplish in the gym. So you're going to be sore at some point, but that's okay. And just make sure that we keep our long-term focus on, what it is that we want to be accomplishing. And I think that's pretty key in terms of, go out, understand that what you're doing in the gym might you might be a little sluggish, you might be a little tired going out onto the course, and that's okay. But just understand that in order to get that improvement, you're going to have to put the work in, which, I think is crucial. I think for any athlete to have a proper off season is crucial. So, I guess to sum up, get assessed, make a plan, work your plan, take a little bit of time off.
All right, buddy. And where can the audience find you and follow what you have going on?
They can follow me on Twitter at Mitch Sadowsky. Same Instagram tag. And that's it for right now. I'm working on building a website. Probably one part of the non-training side of my business I've been a little bit slacking on. But for other strength coaches that are out there, you guys will know, if our noses aren't buried in extracts and invoicing, then we're in the gym actually working with clients. So I'm going to actually be putting in an off season of my own for some training, taking a little bit more business time and getting that stuff up and going.
Nice. Well, I look forward to seeing it, and obviously we'll be spreading the word here on 18strong.com for sure. All right, man. Well, thanks. You know that we're going to link everything up here in the show notes for you, so you guys can all find where Mitch's stuff is, his Twitter, his Instagram. We'll link to the guys up at the Athlete Factory, give them some love so people can go check out their stuff. And Mitch, just want to say thanks for taking the time, man. It was really, really pleasure getting to know you out in California, and I consider you a friend now, and I look forward to doing some stuff with you in the future.
Absolutely. In fact, one other guy I want to mention to follow on Twitter, it's SpeedGeek_PB. And that's a guy named Paul Balsam, who is just a brilliant mind in strength and conditioning that I'm going to be working quite a bit with, developing some programs. So follow him along as well.
Absolutely. We'll throw that on there too.
Great.
All right. Thanks, Mitch. We'll be catching up soon, bud.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
You got it. All right. Another great episode with one of the great fitness professionals working in the golf world today. Mitch, thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. It was great catching up. And I have to say that that's the coolest part about being able to do this podcast, is being able to reach out and talk to some of the best professionals in the world in their different realms in the golf world, and whether that be the fitness professional, the mental professional, and then just to be able to catch up with somebody like Mitch and see what he's doing and where he's going and who he's working with. I just find it to be very entertaining for myself, selfishly, and I get to learn something new every episode. And so I hope that you guys are getting some benefits and learning some new stuff. And, as I always say, please let me know what are the questions you guys want answered, what are the things you want to know, and who are the people that you want to try to get on the podcast. I'll reach out to just about anybody, and the worst they can say is no, right? So thank you guys again for being here. Really appreciate you listening to the episodes. As always, I want you to train hard, practice smart, and play better golf. Thanks again, guys.
Thanks for listening to the 18 Strong podcast at www.18strong.com. And remember, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.